Something I really wish I knew when I got started as a network engineer was how to track down devices on a network. So at the end of this video, I'm going to be showing you how to do that. So let's go ahead and get started.
But before jumping into the configuration and the hands-on, let's take a look back to last week where we had everything connected, everything was working fine. Just so that we remember, we had both of the PCs in our lab connected to the same VLAN as we see here. There was one in port 1 and then one in port 3, which was in VLAN 10. So this is just showing the broke down Dell computer that we've been using in our lab, and the pings are successful. You can't really see it there, but hopefully in this video I got a little bit closer with the angles, just trying to get better, but basically just showing that we can ping it. Then what did we do? We moved that guy out of VLAN 10, and it even showed us in the switch when we removed the port. And now we moved that Dell computer into another VLAN, which was VLAN 50. Port number 2, as we could see, it's now in a different position, that cable, and it's in a whole different VLAN. And now it can't even talk to the other VLAN, and that's our problem, and that's where we're left off today, and where we're going to actually pick up with our hands-on and getting this router configured to allow this inter-VLAN communication. Okay, hopefully now we're ready to go ahead and get hands-on and set up our router for this inter-VLAN routing communication. So first, what we're going to do is get in configuration mode, and we are going to create our sub interfaces for each VLAN that we need to route between. These sub interfaces are going to act as virtual interfaces for each VLAN. So the commands are, first of all, you got to get on the sub interface and use interface gig 0/0/0, and then once you add that dot, that's creating a sub interface. So dot 10 for VLAN 10, and then we need to put our trunk encapsulation on this sub interface with encapsulation .1q, and then specify which VLAN we want to tag the traffic with that's coming across this sub interface, and we would specify VLAN 10. And then we're just going to do this same setup with the other sub interface and just repeat it for VLAN 50. Same exact commands. You're going to want to practice doing this if you want to get good at doing inter-VLAN routing, or this is also known as router on a stick. So if you want to get good at that, and that's a great skill to have, this is what you need to be practicing. Now, since we did the router, we're going to have to go onto our switch, and we're going to have to configure a trunk port on the switch to be able to communicate with the sub interfaces that we tagged for trunking with the encapsulation of .1q on the router. So the first thing you want to do is pick what port. I picked interface gig 01, and then all you have to do is put in the command switch port, trunk encapsulation, and then it'll give you some options. You got .1q, ISL, or negotiate. ISL is rarely even used. You won't even hear about it. If you're studying for CCNA or just getting into networking, just focus on using .1q for trunk encapsulations. And then the rest of the command to configure the port as a trunk is switch port mode trunk. It's really just that easy. Now it is time to verify that everything is working correctly. So this device is in VLAN 10, like we had it in the last lab. This is the broke down Dell, and I'm gonna zoom in here for you. Hopefully you guys can see that. And then we're just gonna ping a device in VLAN 50, which is a totally different VLAN, and this is where we were stuck at last time. Now that we've made all of the configurations, let's see what happens. If we get a reply, great, we know that our inter-VLAN routing is working and the devices can communicate with each other across the VLANs. But if we don't, like we're doing right here, it's dropping the pings. So now we need to start troubleshooting, and this is where your layer 1 stuff starts coming into play and all of that. So I'm going to set up a continuous ping. This is just free game here for you. If you use -T, it'll run a continuous ping to your destination for troubleshooting purposes. This way you can just monitor it when it does come up. It's really helpful when you're trying to monitor connectivity. So that's what I set up here. Let's go ahead and look at layer 1 and our physical connections to start our troubleshooting. Alright, so to start the troubleshooting, we have one connection here that is going to our PC that's in VLAN 10. That's on port number 5 of our switch. And then on port number 2 going to VLAN 50 is to the MacBook over here. And we can't communicate right now because they can't ping each other because they're in two separate VLANs. So now looking at the connection between our trunk port and our router, it looks like we don't even have a cable. So that's a simple fix, right? We just need to put a cable in between these two devices. That's what's causing the failure. So this is the router port gig 000 that we had the sub interfaces configured on. And then we're going to take the other end and we're going to plug that directly into the other port, the trunk port. And as you can see, it comes right up. That's what it'll look like. So that pretty much is it for the cabling. Now let's go test the connection again. And almost instantly it just starts responding to the ping to the other VLAN, which is VLAN 50, and we're hitting the .50 IP address of the MacBook Pro on the other end of the connection. Alright, so now for that bonus part where I was going to show you how to trace on a network. So let's use that example PC that's in VLAN 10. How I would trace it on the network, I would just ping from the router, and that's the IP address. Once it responds, then I would just use the show IP route command. So that's my first command to trace on the network, show IP route. This is going to show me how to get to that destination of that host. So right here I'm just copying and pasting it directly into that command, and as you can see, it knows it because it's directly connected to our sub interface, and it'll even tell you it's connected to you. So we just have to use the command that shows what's connected to us. But first, let's get the ARP information from here, which is the MAC address of that IP address, so that we can find the physical device, because we have to get down to layer 2. We can't just use layer 3 to find the device. We got to get down to layer 2. So then I use show CDP neighbor. That shows me that it's connected to that switch 1 in our lab, which is on gig 000 interface. So I would just hop into switch 1 if I knew the IP address of switch 1, or I console into switch 1, which I have console access. Then I would console in there, do show MAC address table, and then address, and then put the MAC address of whatever device I'm tracing on the network. And then I would just paste that, and then if I could paste it in correctly. Alright, and just like that, once you run the command, it'll give you the VLAN information, the physical port where this device is actually hanging off of on your switch. So that's how you trace down a device on a network.
And that's it. It's really that simple. Like I always say, this stuff is not rocket science. We just configured inter-VLAN communication. And with this video, you have the steps, the simple and easy steps on how to make two devices that are in two different VLANs communicate with one another. Also, I definitely share, make sure that you practice how to trace down those devices on the network. And with this inter-VLAN communications, mess with the different sub interfaces, give it different IP addresses, put things in different VLANs. The more you stay consistent with practicing these tasks and that technique that I showed you on a daily basis, that's the better that you're gonna get at networking and just all around in IT. Again, definitely just use this video, make sure it keeps you sharp whenever you need it, and don't forget to hit that notification bell, because next week's video, we're definitely moving up that OSI model and we're going to the next layer in this lab. I'm gonna do layer 4 and I'm gonna implement a pfSense firewall. I've never done this before. I'm gonna do some background stuff, of course, but if you lock in with me, you're gonna see us implement a pfSense firewall. So make sure you got those notification bells on so you don't miss that next video when I drop it. I'm gonna holla at you on that next one. Peace.